Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome back again to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I am your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with our guest, Josh Fuller. Josh is the CEO and founder of Matic Digital, a digital strategy and talent growth company. So we are planning on having two exciting episodes with Josh. And today we're going to talk first off about the right time and the right place to expand your business into new opportunities. And then next week, we will be talking about how to strategically share your team and resources with the businesses around you to improve productivity and profitability. So thanks again for joining us today, Josh. Looking forward to the conversation.
Glad to be here, Mike. Good to be meeting with you.
Awesome. So when we think about the word risk management as it relates to businesses finding success today, what does that mean to you, and what are some of the challenges that we would be looking at?
You know, I think to me, and again, not being a risk management consultant, but I certainly manage a fair amount of risk with our company, with Matic. Embracing it a little bit. It's most people I think that I've met on the journey that are running a shop have, done a successful exit, are at the beginning looking up or at the top looking down. They chose to run something, to build something, to, go into territory nobody had settled and settle into that territory and build upon it. So risk is awesome. Risk is the juice. And I think being calculated and learning from mistakes is, I know that's very vanilla, but that is, time and time again, just knowing where the potholes are and how to avoid them. And you don't always see them if you haven't taken the risk to learn about them. So that's kind of my approach to it is embracing it and being nimble and pivoting quick if you find that it was a risk that didn't net what it needed to net.
That's a great point. So when you think of the term risk, what or how does somebody decide, or how do they distinguish between something that's risky versus something that's maybe dangerous or irresponsible, so to speak?
Oh, geez, like in business or cutting off a car in traffic? I mean,
it's the same thing, isn't it?
In business, we're an agency, and so we were recently invited to pursue some business that is not total wheelhouse. It's adjacent to, it's connected within. So we're brand and digital. And so within that, we touch a lot, but there's also, traditional agencies that take on pure creative. And that can and is defined a little bit different than a digital agency of record is just going to be focused on different pieces of the business than a creative agency of record. We had the opportunity of kind of having a bit of a 360 degree. It was a very big swing, and we made it to the finals, and got in the room with the right people, and ultimately didn't necessarily. We weren't selected, and there was an investment. So the risk was the investment, and I guess the takeaway of it for us was really happy we stepped up to that plate. A lot of it was kind of like a paid education, or I guess I paid for it. All right.
Sounds risky.
It was risky, but it was an incredible place to go to bat against, some much more established traditional agencies, put our hat in the ring, come out of round one as the front runners, and going into round two as sort of the group consensus choice. We were overwhelmingly the choice by many on the team, on the client team. The lead client chose another direction, and that's okay. But so our lesson in this one, I think, was, yeah, it was a risk. We did pure investment. It impacted quarterly outcome, and as a team, we talked about what it would look like going into it, and we talked again on the retro about how we all felt coming out and not winning, and nobody said, "Well, my bonus was smaller, and that's not cool." Everybody took the risk with me, and everybody was proud of the work we did and the place we got. Getting into that room, we're a year and a half old. It could take, companies can work 15, 20 years and never get into the room we got into. So the risk was, yeah, we may not win, but the reward was really valuable on this one, of just the learnings of where we want to play, where we want to live, how far we were, how big of a swing are we going to take in the future for unpaid pursuit work. So there was a lot of lessons, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to be telling you that we'd won, but I probably wouldn't have time to be talking with you today if we had won. The overwhelming sense of relief was very telling, of like, okay, I don't have to hire 8 people to run that client now. So, because that would have just been a massive, massive undertaking. But again, the risk of doing it was there's zero regret.
That's great. That's a great insight. So if I'm being retrospective in my own career, I can look back to times when we did something similar. We took that risk. And I think the value, and this is seemed to be what you were highlighting, is the education experience that you gain from having been in the room and go through that exercise and actually to put it all out there, right? Put it on the field and see what you're capable of. And now next time, you know where that threshold is. You probably know a little bit more, that you probably have a higher ceiling than you might have thought you had previous, because you were actually in there and you got close. There's a phrase people say, you either win or you learn, right? That's not winning and losing. You win or you learn. I also like to say you win and you learn. And I think we can learn as much sometimes from our wins as we do from our losses too. So it's important to learn no matter what we're doing. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's many other stories that have involved a bit of a risk or an investment or a chance that are paying off great. But I don't know why. Maybe it's the melancholy in me. I like to really elevate on the non-clear wins and look for the win in it. And to me, the win in it was, it didn't damage morale. It actually lifted it. In an interesting way, people saw their work. They got to really, push themselves in ways that generally you don't get the work you want if you don't try to do it and go after it. And yeah, we do a ton of digital, and sometimes we've in our wins bucket, we do a ton of digital strategy, whether that's web or application, and then we'll, kind of be top down given the creative direction. And in this one, we got to flex the creative freedom and how does all this really work? What's a 360-degree brand really live and breathe like? And where does it sit, not just at the end of this project, which is often very common for Matic to be on, project engagements. This was a 3-year vision and on. So it was true, ground up platform building and leveraging a pretty massive audience base. So the fact that we, again, got in there, made it through to the finals, came out really strong and kind of out of our own hands. Relationships are a hard thing to break, and another shop won the business due to some pre-existing relationships, and that happens. That's okay. So I think, smart business also says maybe ask a few more qualifying questions in the future. But no, it was a monumental moment for our team to stretch that way. and to not, get laughed out of again, a room that many would, it's a hard room to get into. So, the fact that we did as well as we did, for our first outing was really, impressive to me and impressive to some really, it's not dead by any means. It was all for something. We just didn't get the win that day.
Nice. That's a great approach to take. Yeah, I think we learn from each other when we get scrappy and we have to be out of the comfort zone and try something different or unique or new. And maybe it's not a new service, or maybe it's not a new specialty necessarily. Maybe you're just expanding on something you already did, or maybe it's just a larger project. I don't know what all the differences are, but how do you determine whether something is worthwhile to go all in on, versus, you know what, we're actually not even going to go into this deal here because it just really isn't who we are. And even if we want it, I don't know that it would be the best use of our time and resources.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think it's very case by case. I don't think I have a playbook for that it is short of many pages. It's very individualistic. So when we're looking at a certain opportunity, I mean, right now we don't do a ton of RFP responses. That's kind of it's not a rule by any means. RFPs do show up, but you kind of know, okay, at the RFP stage, there's a pretty big playing field. There's going to be a lot of capable groups on the list, the distro list for that. Is that the business we want to chase when we've got these, really strong relationships that we've been building into? And like, would we rather be a think tank for what can we do with a client that already trusts us and wants guidance from us? Or should we go after a generated email distro we were on and be like, yeah, let's put all our effort on this. So I think one of the ways we're selective is like, we really look at what we have and how to build into that, not just new streams of revenue. And that's a piece of it because that's business. But again, being, in the creative and the user and consumer and software side of this, there's kind of a constant appetite for evolution and a constant appetite for engagement. So even when we're not active for client A, on any one engagement, it transcends a sales reach out when you've actually spent a little bit of time thinking about, what would be great for them. And sometimes that's a 10-minute lucky moment of inspiration because you saw something on a show that last weekend and we're like, it made me think about them and this would be cool. I'm going to see if we can chat. But there's two sides of that coin. Are we hassling them with a meeting to pitch them an idea we had and, hey, break out the checkbooks? I mean, that's certainly one side, but we really don't want relationships like that. We really try and cultivate more of a relationship where, hey, we had this idea. We think it would be really, potentially impactful. It needs a lot more discovery and kind of discussion with you guys to see if it's something you want to pursue. But, we want the approach there to be much more seen as partner and as, we didn't just finish your project and say bye. We really kind of, when you get with some of the engagements we work on, we get so embedded into the North Star, the pain points, the personalities that are at play there and the factors driving their business up or downstream that we very much want to, why throw that away when the finish line is met for the one thing we did when there's 10,000 things happening in their orbit so, we do a bit of the thinking and it's not on a dime. It's just kind of a part of the nature, I think, of at least myself and definitely the people that we hire on here at Matic.
Yeah. And you made a reference to maybe asking a few more questions earlier on. So that's always one area I think most of us can improve is, probably lead with more questions. But then in hindsight, being retrospective, if you look back, have you changed anything since then from what you learned to add, those arrows to your quiver, so to speak, on future engagements?
Yeah, so I said this too, and it's a bragging right. I is how I intended it, but now I'll say it as a lesson. Is we're a year and a half in business, like getting into that room, into that type of engagement. Everything would have had to go perfect, and that's why I sensed relief. I believe we would have rose to the challenge. I believe we had support both in our team and in the team we would have brought on, and in partners. So I think we would have been very successful on an engagement like that. But it also regrounded where we are. So this, Matic just hit its kind of stride or point of inflection last fall, where we were growing at a pace where I needed more than contractors support, and I needed more interfacing with the client than the time I had in the day. So, I basically, the first year of a company like mine is usually just permalancing. You're just hustling, you're selling, you're doing the billing, you're doing the work, you're finding the team to help you with the work, and you're finding the clients. And so I didn't start Matic with a, war chest. It was pretty bootstrapped, and supported by some really phenomenal colleagues I've met over the years who, yeah, hey, you're doing that? Oh, I might have somebody you should talk to. And it kind of blossomed from there. But no, I mean, it was just me and a laptop, back out in the field, and some lucky breaks that went my way. I was able to rise to the occasion. But it was really this year, is when we went from one kind of all around operations support to 7 employees, and a scaling kind of contractor army behind us that and with us that we can plug in and grow with. But we hadn't, having no business in that room means that, like, we need to really embrace the opportunities that are great for us. This would have been big, and there's a lot of amazing future and long tail work and all of this and great creative that we could get out there, and the press that this will generate, that if we win this, all of that was there. And so very happy we went for it. But again, the grounded version is like, would we go after that exact type of project again, given where we are as a company? And I would say no. We'd rather grow into that. And so I think on the humility aspect, there are some massive projects that we are doing and would love that we're looking at, that we'd love to have in the digital space, in the digital software and brand engagement and e-commerce, that type of world. We're doing some things in health. It's very interesting. This was that's the wheelhouse, and starting to own, okay, like we have a wheelhouse, and that wheelhouse is dependent on where we are right now as a company. And we're a good 50-person capability tomorrow, like any week. But, are those 50 people dialed in tune to go be the creative agency of record for a multinational brand? Like, possibly not the best fit. I think we could rise to the occasion, but I don't think we'll be chasing that work. By the way, if somebody wants to call us about that, we won't say no. Let's have the talk. But we're not chasing that work right now. We're the work we're setting our eyes on is the work that, I believe we can be the most successful with, the most profitable with, and grow, to be honest. You've heard of growing too fast, right? And I think this would have put us at risk for growing too fast. So again, like I said, relief. I received relief on that situation.
Yeah, one of my colleagues here shares with our sales team a story, and he was, had a startup, and they were in this huge deal over in Europe, and to fly there and go and do this presentation, and you could count the entire company employee roster on less than one hand. Even if you had a lawnmower accident, you still would be fine. You're still not going to run out of fingers. And they were competing against SAP, and they got to go first. And when it was all said and done, they were selected over SAP. And they told them the reason why we chose you is because your presentation and your proposal were just spot on. They were thorough. They were very professional. And it was from asking great questions and doing all the things. And SAP, multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of thousands of employees, and they had even made a comment, laughing, saying, "For all we know, it's you and a couple guys in your garage, but your presentation and the confidence you've instilled in us in just everything that you've done here, it just feels like you're the right guy." And he is laughing, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I've been found out. It's me and a couple guys in my garage." But they delivered on it, and they did awesome, and was one of their amazing accounts that really put them on the map. And so it can happen to any of us if you're willing to ask the right questions, put the work in, and be and look and act like a billion-dollar company. And maybe they'll treat you like one, and then maybe you'll end up having an opportunity to grow into a lot bigger pair of boots than you walked in there.
Yeah, I love that story for your friend. That's amazing. And we've certainly found ourselves in a few really good situations like that too. I don't know if we've beat out what a scope for a SAP might look like, but that's neither here nor there. I love those types of stories. One of our advisors and one of my very good friends and former boss, started an agency, a digital software agency in Denver, late 90s, early 2000s. So one of the earlies, it's called Spire, and Spire Digital. I was actually the CD there for a number of years in the early 2010s. He and the fable goes, you've heard of eBags, perhaps? Yeah. So eBags was founded in Denver. He had started this company. It was him and like a developer, and just, he didn't even design. He was just a really good talker, and he did a little design, I guess, but not much. And he ended up going up against the Razorfishes and a few bigger ones out there at the time, for eBags, this new cutting edge e-commerce, bags for everyone solution that had never existed. And I think it was about a $500,000 engagement, as I understand it. And he was very literally two guys in a garage, and he built a whole company around that contract, and they never looked back. And he ran it successfully for years, employed many people, like I said, myself included. And they had a very successful exit in 2019. So, that stuff, those opportunities are, what's interesting is they took a chance on him, right? And he did the right things with it by the client, but also by growing his own company. And when they exited, it was a couple 100-person company. Like, the impact, the ripple effect that had over almost 2 decades. It's funny. I love thinking about ripple effects of things. Another story for another time, but there's a lot of ripple in the world. So I love that.
Yeah. So, you're talking about, really probably aren't going to go out of your way to pursue an opportunity like this other one that you maybe got close on, but didn't win. To me, that's leadership. And I think that's critical, especially in younger startup companies or companies that are really looking to scale. Somebody's got to make that decision. And if you make the wrong one and your staff becomes confused as to who you are or where you're going, or, who's steering this rudder on this ship, who's running this thing and where are we going? As opposed to just around in circles or, for island hopping from one to the next, versus really trying to get to a destination that you're on purpose with and that your compass is set to. And there's some things that are tangible that they can count on and that they can plan on and feel like they're on the right ship. They're working with a winner. because of your vision and those other things from a leadership perspective. But what, as a leader, what drives you? Is it your gut? Is it data? Is it a combination? Or how do you decide where you set your course to for that direction of the company?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. I mean, I'm not a early in my lifetime person. I'm 45, so a lot of it is hindsight of where, I think we all want to do things we enjoy. So I think first of all, it's like, what kind of projects have I enjoyed? And when I ask that question, really it's come down to what kind of partners have I enjoyed working with. It projects, we're fairly ambidextrous on projects. There's no like, oh, we really love native apps, or we just build experience sites with heavy animation, or we just want to do mega e-commerce all day. We're comprised of strategists, designers, developers, and thinkers that we love all that stuff. And my studio lead and former colleague from Deloitte headed up the Chipotle UX side for their digital strategy, which is the darling story of the last decade in terms of just showing the dream of DX done right, and how it vastly outperformed any expectations put upon it with revenue, and it's because it was user driven. She can apply that exact same thing to a bank. She can apply that exact same thing to a credit card, to a health engagement app, and then obviously scale that way down to a website. So it all comes into getting into this because you love solving the problem or rising to the challenge, and thinking through the eyes of your users. And so we don't focus on any one thing as like what we want to do. So when I'm thinking about what a good fit is and where we're going to focus on the relationships. We're going to focus on the brands we like working with. We've worked with massive tourism, governments, healthcare groups, food and services groups, big e-com, and construction services. We've done kind of, again, it's all about how aligned are we with that leadership team's vision of where they want to go, and can we bolt on, plug in, and do great things together. So that's really where we think about it. Now, I will say there's a satisfaction or a joy when a big digital project comes with, and like we're really embracing where our brand needs to go to support this new thing, or to where we, so a bit of a 360-degree involvement is always, there's a tier of like, we're only focused on the website business of this. Yeah, that can feel a little boxed in. Doesn't mean it's not a fit, just means it's a little boxed in. We hope that we can flex to, because I think users don't look at these brands through specific channel lenses they're looking at this brand as a brand all in, from first touch display on Meta or TikTok all the way through to power user using the app every day to move their money or buy their groceries.
Well, a brand or a logo is I mean, it, from my perspective, it's a representation of an experience. I mean, that's supposed to invoke an emotion or a feel or something within you. When you see that logo, hopefully it stirs something within you. And so what a company does with that and how they choose to monetize and also leverage and take advantage of that is, there are a lot of opportunities. But when I come from construction, I came up in the industry. I used to do primarily residential custom homes. Then I started doing more production homes. It was really hard to do both. And we used to frame our own, and it was like, oh man, I finally had to just, let the framing crew go help the subcontractor that was framing my homes, because I just didn't have time to. What I would find is my framing crew was the one in the way holding up the house that I was a general contractor on, and it was like, oh, I had to choke my own neck, right? If there's a problem, it's,
Right.
kick myself in the pants, right? So,
Yeah.
and I remember this one time I got invited and very, very strongly encouraged. And this guy was literally begging. I mean, he was showing up at my house on the weekends, begging me to bid this build job on this roller skating rink. And I was like, I've never built it. I mean, there's not very many of those in the area that I live in. I mean, there's a handful within 50 miles, not a common thing. And I looked at it and I bid it and I'm looking at it and my main project manager and superintendent were like, let's not do that. Let's just keep building houses. Nobody wanted to do it. And so I didn't end up taking that job. I turned it down. It was our opportunity we had to bid and just decided we didn't want to do it. And I've always wondered, should I have done that or not? And I don't know. I don't know who knows where you pivot from one thing or another. I mean, you got to keep moving forward. So you can't really, play the what if game because that's, there's no winner in that. And you got to fail forward, right? So if we should have done it, then I'm going to go find something like that. And then we're going to give it a try because my gut's telling me that was something I should have pursued. But ultimately we didn't, and it was probably the right call. But
it probably was. And like, that's the thing about retrospection is like, yeah, you could have, okay, let's pull the thread back to your friend's story with SAP or my agency friend's story. What if they hadn't won that deal? And what if that was the question they're asking themselves now today? Well, what ifs? Because I think it's a dangerous, it's a slippery slope between should I have and what if. And I would say resoundingly no, like you probably shouldn't have because you're here now, you're doing, you know what I mean? You've got the employees, the offering, the expertise, the specialties. Yeah, I mean, retrospection is phenomenal for growth and learning, but, once, I just, for me, I own the outcome, right? Whether it doesn't mean I own the decision because I don't. I didn't own the decision on the one we didn't win. But I can own the outcome that, hey, that didn't happen. I mean, it goes back to the cheesy, a door closes, a window opens and all of that. But it truly, I truly did have the feeling of like, well, now we're free to really work on the things that we're most well built for. There would have been a lot of cutting our teeth in real time and a high profile thing on doing pure display work and media strategy buy and placement and calendars and looking for events to promote and all typical traditional agency of record type stuff.
Yeah, sure.
That's not wheelhouse. We're all about how do we find, attract, and attain users and get eyes to do things with our experiences. So, it's a good marriage, but I'm not going to look back and although the only regret you should probably have is all the savings you would have had at roller skating rinks. You probably would have never had to pay.
Right? Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. So then, if you're feeling melancholy about a project that you didn't win or maybe one that you did, right? It's like, just learn from that, take that lesson and don't feel that way on the next one. Like, we have to continue to it's like pinball, you're bouncing off of different barriers and obstructions through life and in business. And that ball's just got to keep moving. You can't, there's no redos. I mean, you can reinvent yourself and make different choices to become something different, but you are who and where you are. And every choice you've made in your life led you to here in this moment today. And so the way to change the future is to make a different decision next time. And
yeah, there's plenty of dead ends in business, but while you're breathing, there's no dead ends in life. So like, if
there's one, but then it's over.
That's what I'm saying. While you're breathing, right? Yeah. There's one dead end and it's coming, but
yeah,
for a while. But no, I mean, there's dead ends in business, but there's no dead ends for what the next step is. So, yeah, I think that's the resolve that I annoyingly, and to some people around me frustratingly, have is like, oh, well, we'll move in this direction, or that's a problem, that's an obstacle, this is a rudimentary.
Yeah, call it what it is, make a decision. I mean, it sounds like you try and look at it through the lens of humor and try and, be a little bit lighthearted in terms of, okay,
Yeah.
All right, cool. New challenge. Great. All right. That one didn't work so well. So we're going to do something different.
And then, and sometimes there's challenges, how do we evaluate what we want? That was a piece of the question earlier. And, I mean, there's another side of the coin of that's just not going to work for us. We don't think we're the best partner for you on this. And those happen, that's never a goal to get to. It's just, but like with the roller skating rink, that's not a space you wanted to become the master of, right? and be,
there was no next roller rink job. There was no next roller. I was like, okay. It's a total non-off. And we just felt like it was going to be a distraction from our production and what we were really good at. And so it's like, well, okay. And even our subs, right? What if they got tied up on that? And now I got to find new subs to do my other, and just all the domino effect. And I think that was just wisdom of my staff and my team also recognizing, because I'm more risk, I guess, proactively willing to lean into a little risk. And, I'm down for something new and cool and different and exciting. But sometimes, again, that's just not the right approach when you're already busy and you've got a lot going on and you're already trying to balance spinning plates. The last thing you need is, someone to throw a basketball at you and say, hey, let's add that in the mix.
Right. Well, when it comes to, I took my daughter for spring break. We went to Orlando for last month, and there was two risks lessons in that. One was I took the risk of just by describing how scary a roller coaster could be, and listening to a 7-year-old say, "I'm ready. I want to do it. I have to do it." So we rode the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was so the risk was freaking out my daughter. The outcome was her with her arms up in the air at 7, having the time of her life, and me hoping nobody hears me go, please be over, please be over, please.
Right. Okay.
I hate it. I am not a roller coaster guy. But when it comes to things like, business or, starting on a new endeavor, the risk voice isn't very heavy. It's usually is it, do we want it and is it achievable? And those are the two kind of loud voices in the head. And the risk voice, it's there, but it's not the driver. It's just a concerned citizen.
Yeah. Right. Well, and now again, back to your experience with your daughter, you're not a roller coaster guy, but you are a dad guy. And so you made a choice to say, hey, this is about her and her having a memorable, good, experience and a good time, and something she's probably never going to forget. Yeah.
It's all she talks about. The sad thing is I was feeling the guilt ahead of it. Like, honey, like I wanted to go. Yeah. I did lightning pass to get us into it and everything. I was like, I got to do this ride. And then I remembered I hate roller coasters on the ride.
Cold feet.
He had the best in the world. But yeah, so the risk was traumatizing her. The reward was giving her something she loves.
Yeah. Well, and again, that goes the same with our employees, our staff, our customers. Sometimes it doesn't make as much sense to you in the moment that, hey, this is what I really want to be doing, or this is really best. I think the big picture things when you're running a business and you're serving customers are a lot more important. And they're also the things that people are going to remember down the road, like your daughter in this, or the client you did some extra things for that, maybe you gave them a break on, or you went above and beyond, and maybe let them personalize something a little more than was agreed on originally, or whatever it was. I think when you take one for the team here and there in good faith, and then you also, you remind them, like you show them on the invoice, hey, no charge for this, but I did call it out just so that was a trick that I learned after years of giving so much away and never feeling like I got the street cred later for having done that. It was kind of like, oh yeah, that was cool. Okay, thank you. But when you call it out on the invoice and you acknowledge that, and you can go back and reference it if it becomes an issue, and say, hey, I did you a few solids here, and they're accounted for. Then I think those things in the right timing and with the right spirit, also can help you grow and scale your business in a way that you're going to get those referrals. You're going to get that extra credibility that maybe is going to help you win that bigger job, or maybe going to get you in a new space that you're interested in getting involved in. So,
yeah, absolutely. There's so much in that. I mean, I think there's always a job to be done, and like to get to the table, that you get to, you got to have the qualifications, the team, the experience, and the resources to accomplish that job. That's how you get to that table. That's how I get to the table with the tables I get to. But there's nothing wrong with, in fact, for me, the best part is kind of that, whether it's a professional relationship or grows to like, hey, you're coming into town, let's go grab lunch. Or so it goes a little bit beyond professional and into like, we talk about our children, or we talk about how we got to doing the businesses we're doing now. Whatever, relationship starts to happen. And I think that's so key. The relationships I've got some that thankfully have lasted, a couple of decades, and some of those started purely professional. Case in point, the former boss is also one of my best friends. We've been to Cuba together. We've traveled to parts of the world and hung out and done things. And yeah, it all started because I had a small shop at the time, and they were the big one. And I said, can I take you guys to lunch and just pick your brains? And then it turned into, well, that guy Josh seems all right. We'll throw him the work that's maybe not a good fit for an agency our size. And yeah, I got some bit. And then eventually they were like, hey, we really need to build out a proper creative, offering here. Do you want to come be the creative director? And, because I did my own like kind of permalance shop for 9 years. Right. That's how I got my teeth. There was no jobs and after the .com boom. So I started a small shop and did that. And I created a good job for myself. I didn't create a business at that point. I didn't know how to, but I created a good job and I enjoyed it. But then, yeah, when they came calling, I was like, I like all of you. And I want to see how, the big kids play, and how you get to the types of clients and engagements and the solution. I was feeling very much the walls of the work I was able to sell and get into. So I took that, and then that led to a much bigger leap with Deloitte. But it's all those relationships.
Yeah. Well, that's what it all is. And then you parlay those experiences and tie those into those relationships. And now you own a different business, and you're able to circle back and maybe serve some of those people again in a different capacity, or just expand again, like that pinball. You're just bouncing up your way up the board and moving forward, right? So.
Hopefully, yeah, that seems to be the trajectory, which is the only one you can have.
Well, this has been a great conversation, lots of fun. Are there any final takeaways for the audience before we wrap up today and get you scheduled to come back on next week?
Yeah. Take risks. That's a takeaway. It's up to you to measure them, but take them. You don't take them, you don't go anywhere, is sort of what it feels like.
Beautiful. Well, love that. Well, thanks again for joining us today, Josh. Had a great time, and looking forward to having another good conversation here soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.